Woohoo! It's day 4. Here with me is Riff Raff, my giraffe. Both he and Raja are my bays from my annual Build-A-Bay, which happens around Valentine's Day every year. And now I have 2 because I've been here for 2 years, and I'm very excited to get numbers 3 and 4. Who knows what kind of animals they will be. Let me know in the comments if you have a particular favorite animal, and I will try my best to make that my next bay. But I already have a tiger and a giraffe, so those ones are off the table for bays. So what I wanted to do today was, I realized I've been saying a lot about how I do dissections of fruit flies, but I haven't really gone into detail about what that entails, so I wanted to go a little bit through that. And I will say that this is the second time I'm recording this video because my phone is annoying and I'm out of storage, so I had to go through and delete some pictures, and it's okay because all my pictures are backed up, so we're good. But I will say that this is the second time I'm recording this, so if I'm going through things a little fast, that is why. I've rehearsed this, apparently, at this point, twice. This is number 2. So the first thing you want to do is get your flies, and so you have a vial. It's about this big. At the top is some cotton, at the bottom is some food, and in the middle are some flies. They have all that space to fly around and to mate and to eat food and to lay eggs and all the things that little flies do in their little life cycle. So you get your flies, and in the lab we have fly pads, which are basically plastic little things the size of an index card, and they have holes in them, and that fly pad is connected by a tube to a canister of CO2, which is turned on in the lab, and the CO2 knocks the flies out, puts them to sleep so that you can look at them under a semi-decently powered microscope. It's powerful enough to do dissections while you do your dissecting, and you can sort through them. So basically, you have different balancer chromosomes, because the neat thing about the fly genome is it's compact. There are only 4 chromosomes. For example, my chromosome, or the chromosome that my gene is on, is chromosome 2, and there are little balancer chromosomes that help you keep track of which flies have your particular mutation and which don't, which are carriers, all that kind of stuff, because if they're homozygous for your balancer chromosome, that's lethal, so they die. But if they are carriers, they have a specific marker, and if they're homozygous for your mutation, they don't have that marker, so you can look through them. So I'm interested in male fruit flies because I study the testes and the sperm, because I'm looking at a gene that causes male sterility. Because of an issue with mitochondrial shaping, although we're not quite sure what that issue is yet, so that is what I study. So I basically, in the lab, while they're still on the pad, I sort through them and find the ones that I'm particularly interested, the ones that have straight wings and big eyes, because the balancer chromosomes make them have curly wings and small eyes. So I find the male fruit fly that I want, which has a darker end, and it is a little bit smaller than the female, and it has little hooks on its back legs so it can grab the female while they're mating, and all of that signals to me that that's a fly that I'm interested in. So then I put all the other flies back, and while that fly is still on the fly pad, I take off his head. You can choose to do this at a different time. I choose to do it while they're on the fly pad because it's kind of like they just go to sleep and just don't wake up, which I feel more humane about. But you can choose to do it whenever if you decide to get into research with Drosophila melanogaster. So then we have a dissecting plate that has tiny divots in it, which are, I don't know, like that big, and we fill them with TB buffer. And what I like to do is hold the fly, the front part of the fly, where it does not have a head anymore, but it's abdomen and wings. I hold it and I pull it underwater, and then at the back end of the fly, with my dominant hand, I go in and pull the back end until I see the testes. And that's a big challenge because, especially when you're first doing them, everything looks the same. I think I've mentioned that in a previous video, but they really do. It has the same appearance. you can see that there's a thin membrane around everything, and then inside are tiny little cells. I don't think you can actually see the cells, but you can kind of get a sense that that's, you know, that's where the cells are, because there's little things moving in there. So the only thing that's different about the testes is the shape. So they're kind of shaped like two little spirals, and so when they're connected to each other, they look like a little handlebar mustache. So you pull it out, you see that little handlebar mustache, and you're like, that's the testes. But everything is the same color and kind of has the same thin membrane, so it's kind of difficult the first couple times getting the hang of like, oh, okay, is that the testes or is that something else? Is that the stomach, or, you know, some other organ that I don't know, you know, what's going on down there. So you get your testes out, and then you have a slide that's treated with polylysine, and you put another drop of TB buffer on, and then you take the testes out of the dissecting plate, put them on the polylysine slide. The polylysine helps the testes stick to the slide, so you push them down and stick them in the right organization for you to look at them, however you want to do it. And the most difficult part, second most difficult part, is that you have to peel back the thin membrane that I was talking about. So it's a spiral, and meiosis starts at the base of that spiral and goes until the curly part of the mustache. So you have all different cell stages all the way up until that part. So if you want to see all the cell stages, you have to peel it back all the way and get all those little cells to spill out so you can look at them. I'm not very skilled at that. I don't do artful dissections. I will not pretend that I do. So I kind of just poke at that thin membrane and peel it away until the cells spill out, and I'm like, I bet I have something in there. And then the most difficult part, which is putting on a cover slip. You would be shocked to know how easy it is to get bubbles to form between a cover slip and a microscope slide. It is extremely, extremely easy. But this whole time, you are working with these fine little jeweler's forceps that are the same exact things that jewelers use when putting tiny little diamonds into jewelry. If I can edit a picture in, this is what they look like. But if not, I will link a picture to them down below. They're about the size of tweezers, but the ends are smaller and pointier. They're obviously not dangerous to humans. Like, if you poked yourself with them, you wouldn't bleed or anything, but they're extremely sharp so that you can actually do dissecting. So after you do that, you get your cover slip on, you take it to the microscope, and you can look at it with however much definition you need, with fluorescence, if you have things fluorescing in there. So that's basically how to dissect a fruit fly 101. 101. I don't know why I did that. That was stupid. So the other thing I wanted to talk about is that I went to lunch with my lab group and my professor, which, thank you. She treated us all to lunch, which was super nice of her. And it was kind of strange. Not in a bad way. She's not weird. None of my lab mates are weird. I like them all very much. They're very sweet people. It's very nice to talk to them. But in the same way that when you're in elementary and middle school, you see a teacher and you then see them in the supermarket and you're like, I've never seen so-and-so outside of school. It's so weird. They have a life. That's very much how I've thought about my professor. I've had her for multiple classes, and she's also my advisor. So I know her, you know, in the academic context very well. She has helped me pick classes for my semesters and has taught me twice now. And I'm obviously in the lab with her, so I have learned a lot about her academically through that context. But this was my first time kind of hanging out with her, which was just kind of interesting. I got to see, she was talking about how to get people to do her reading and whether or not she should do cold calling, and we were talking about advice, or, you know, what we liked in other professors, and like kind of giving her advice of like, oh, like this worked really well, or I liked this teacher's testing technique, and she was just pulling ideas, and it was super interesting to see her synthesizing all of this information about teaching, you know, how we learn best, which, you know, of course, we are her guinea pigs. We are the people who are here with her this summer, so she's gonna probably test a little bit out on us. I mean, obviously we don't have tests and no homework, really, just some readings, but, you know, it's kind of wild to see someone think about how to teach a class based on stuff that you say, which has really never happened to me before. I mean, never. I've never said, like, oh, I learned best this way, and then had a teacher change how I learn. Like, maybe a tutor, or talking to my dad about, you know, how I learn. He might change his technique when he's teaching me about physics, which, shout out to my dad, because he got me that 3 on AP Physics. You know, didn't learn anything in my physics class. I learned it all from my dad. But, so, like, I've had that kind of thing happen, but, like, never have I ever seen someone, like, synthesize about teaching, which was just super cool. And, you know, we talked about restaurants, and, she talked about, you know, where she goes and hangs out and goes to get food, and that was just super interesting, and it was just super fun to hang out with them outside of the lab, and super nice of her to treat us to lunch. But yeah, so I just got some ice cream for an ice cream social that I'm hosting for my residents, and it's Friday, so I'm gonna watch a movie and hang out. But this is day 4, so, you know, we're almost there. This is my last day before I leave on Monday for my sister's graduation, so I'll be going back home, which I'm super happy about. Yeah, that's all I got. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!